Hi, this is Hall of Famer Eric Dickerson, and you're listening to the Harris Highlights Show. Enjoy it.
Na 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 na.
Coming to you live from downtown Phoenix. This is Season 2, Episode 4 of the Harris Highlights Show. Joining me this week are college football analysts Josh Schaefer and Lyle Goldstein, with our executive producer and cookie, I guess, should you say, deliverer or cookie monster, whatever, Brady Klain, and I am your host for the evening, Blake Harris. So Brady, I say cookie deliver, and we have special guest Rena Patel in studio. So we're literally waiting for Brady.
Sorry.
For about 20 minutes or so, we're thinking, okay, where is Brady? What is he doing? Why is he running late? Well, guys, he shows up with some delicious chocolate chip cookie pizza creation thing. So Brady, I guess we forgive you. Thank you for bringing us that. That was a nice little treat.
I felt bad for being late, so I was like, I have to do something for him. So cookies.
Of course. Now, before we get started, this week's episode is sponsored by SeatGeek. Head on over to SeatGeek.com and enter promo code Harris Highlights. That's one word only, and you will get $20 off your very first order, saving money. Now, I remember Josh a few weeks ago mentioned his parents used it. He used it with his girlfriend for, I think, concert tickets. And as of today, the Harris family has used the promo code for the USC-Arizona State game.
Nice.
I know, so we're saving money. Also, really quickly, some exciting news. We are coming to you live on BlazeRadioOnline.com, Arizona State's local radio station. So if you're listening to this live, well, you get some bonus points because there you go. Also, guys, we are doing a giveaway. We have partnered with Pro Football Focus. Pro Football Focus goes in-depth and gives you NFL player grades and position ranks, as well as fantasy projections. Man, those could have been helpful for me this past week. And as well as rankings and tools. Actually, the fantasy projections, that would have been great for Brady or Lyle over here. Josh and I, we're chilling with our team. We have a lot of points, but you two, Lyle thought he had a dream team, but I guess it was a team in his dreams. And Brady?
Dude, I'm only down 11 points at the time of the recording, and I have Drew Brees left, so I'm going to win.
All right, so
we're
going
to win. Let me let our fans hear this. I have Tom Brady, Le'Veon Bell, and Ezekiel Elliott. Who wouldn't take that?
Well, when they see the rest of your roster, they'll get your answer
there.
there.
Wait, what league are we talking about right now? Are we talking about our podcast league, or are we talking about our giant group?
The podcast league, that's just a whole another league of its own. Really quickly, though, on top of that, they do have lots of great articles as well. Their analysts spend over 50 hours per game generating 140-plus data points on every single play, generating unrivaled player grade metrics and data-driven predictions. The site truly does it all, and we're going to be giving away a subscription.
Their analysts do that. Why can't ours do that?
That's what I'm saying. Now, if you're wondering how you win this, this is how. Head over to Twitter. If you don't have a Twitter, just make one. Make sure you follow me and send me a message saying why you want the subscription, how you would utilize it, and pretty much what you would do with all the football knowledge in the world. The contest ends October 1st. We're going to, just like last week, we're going to have actually multiple callers in this week. The first one, though, is going to be my good friend Andrew. He's going to be calling in a few minutes to talk about that Clemson-Auburn game, which I feel like a lot of people are sleeping on. And Brady, is he calling in as we speak?
Looks like he might be, but man, was that Clemson game great. I can't wait to hear what he has to say about it.
That's for darn sure.
Yeah, that was a really fun game. I knew the Tigers were going to pull this one out over the Tigers, just like we talked about last week when we were talking about this Tigers matchup.
Really defensive game.
Yeah, it was, and I wasn't surprised to see that at all, actually. Especially in the SEC, there are some really good offenses. There's some really good defenses. But then when we have this ACC-SEC matchup, I was expecting a defensive struggle.
Brady, we got him. Andrew, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Perfect. It is working. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome, not only do we have Andrew on the show, this is Koss Sports on YouTube, one of the best highlight makers there is. Andrew, I know it's late over there. It's almost 1 a.m. Thank you for staying up. I know you got a little homework you're working on, but once again, thank you. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, man. How are y'all doing? It's great to be on the show.
Well, I mean, we could be better after that embarrassing loss last night, but that's for way later in the show. So, Andrew, you go to Clemson. You're one of the biggest Clemson fans I know. My first question for you is, do your best to explain to us that have never got to experience it, what is a game like at Death Valley?
I mean, it's just its own thing. You know, it's so unique and everything. You know, it's just the running down the hill and after Ralph Howard's Rock. That right there is when the game just starts going. Everyone starts going nuts. And then once you see the defense get on the field, man, you're not going to be able to hear probably for like the rest of the night. It gets so loud in there, and just everyone is just always so hyped. No one's ever sitting down. The place is just always going crazy. And if it's on, if Clemson's on your bucket list for a place to go to watch a football game, I highly recommend putting it on there.
Yeah, I know we always talk about it, like which stadiums we'd like to go to, which we feel are like what are the best college game day experiences. And every time we've ever touched up on it, Clemson it seems like it's always in our top 3. So we're extremely, extremely jealous that you get to go there every week. But I think, Brady, you wanted to start it off, so let's hear it.
Yeah, well, you said the atmosphere there is crazy and tradition at Clemson also. Have you been able to touch Howard's Rock at all?
Yes, I have, actually. It's it's a long... It's just touching the rock is just something like you just remember Frank Howard's words. If you can't give me 110%, keep your filthy hands off my rock. And when you're touching it, you just feel you're part of just thinking about all the great people who have gone through Clemson, like Brian Dawkins, C.J. Spiller, just to name a few. It's just something amazing to see right there. I mean, of course, unfortunately, it's been chipped away a couple of times, which is unfortunate, but it still is a great thing to see regardless.
Hey, Andrew, talk to us about Kelly Bryant a little bit, because I know he's only played a couple games, but from what I've watched so far, he's looked like, I don't want to say a poor man's Deshaun Watson, because he's been very poised. He's played very well over his first 2 games, but he looks very similar is what I'm trying to say. So what have you seen from him?
I think I've seen a lot of points from him. I feel like there was a lot of pressure on him coming into the season, because everyone's like, oh, he's going to try and be like, is he the next Deshaun Watson or not? But I heard Dabo Swinney one time say, don't be trying to be Deshaun Watson, just be Kelly Bryant. I think he's done a good job of that. I think he's one thing he's done better, actually, than Deshaun Watson. He doesn't try and force the issue. He doesn't throw as many interceptions. And the one interception he threw against Penn State was off of the receiver's hand. And also, I think the one thing he does struggle compared to Deshaun Watson a little bit is the pocket presence, because there was a couple of times he could have gotten out of the pocket and made a play with his legs there and like to avoid the rush. But I think overall he is also a little bit of a quicker runner than Deshaun, and we saw last night he made some big plays on the ground with his feet. And also we've shown that he also has durability. He got hurt in the second quarter and comes back next round and scores a touchdown. So I think as the season goes on, he's just going to learn and continue to get better and become not necessarily an elite quarterback, but a very good game manager, solid quarterback.
Hey, Andrew. It seems like heading into this season, if we're looking at the ACC conference, everyone's thinking, we got DeAndre Francois in Florida State. And now, unfortunately, with him going down and this team starting to, have a few hiccups early on in the season, does it feel like this next contest between Louisville and Clemson could potentially be maybe a preview for an ACC title matchup? Or what do you think?
Well, one, unfortunately, that won't be the case since they're both in the Atlantic.
Yeah,
but
I mean, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Oh, Josh.
But no, it all depends on how Blackman does at quarterback for Florida State, because even though Florida State did lose Francois, they still have a great defense, and it's going to keep them in ball games, I think, throughout the season. But this game between Louisville and Clemson is going to be a huge one, especially with Francois being out, because we don't know how good Florida State still is going to be on the offensive side of the ball. But I do don't think it's going to be like when Florida State went up to Louisville last year and got 63 hung up on them. I don't think Clemson's defense is going to get rattled in an environment like Louisville, because, I mean, Louisville's like, it's can get somebody's loud there, but honestly, it's not that loud. It's not a very intimidating place to play, in my opinion. And also, I think for Louisville, their defense is not as good as last year. So I think Clemson should be favored in this game. I mean, everyone's going to be talking about when Florida State went up there last year, and then also how Lamar Jackson got a lot of yards on Clemson's defense last year. But I think this defense has also improved. So it's going to be a very interesting matchup to see how Brent Venables defensive coordinator for Clemson goes up to Lamar Jackson.
And staying on the topic of next week, last year when they played Louisville, it was a big offensive shootout, but you look at last week's game against Auburn, and it was 14-6. Do you see it being more of an offensive shootout or a defensive game?
Honestly, I would say more an offensive shootout because, one, I think Clemson's offense is going to play a lot better next week because I really don't think Louisville's defense is even as close to as good as last year. It looks like they have lost a lot. And Todd Grantham, he's had a lot of points scored on against teams like Purdue and North Carolina, and who are teams who looked like I didn't think would do anything on offense this year. So I would honestly think, though, an offensive shootout is in the making. If there's any team who can make any stops, it's probably I would go with Clemson, but they're still going to have their work cut out for them against a great player like Lamar Jackson. As much as I'm salty about him winning the Heisman last year over Deshaun, he's still a great playmaker, and he's going to do stuff against any defense for the most part.
And I know they always say that defense wins championships. Now, I remember I got this Bleacher Report notification yesterday when we were at the game. I forget what the exact number was, but I think it said Clemson it was like 10 or 11 sacks yesterday in the game. I remember, Andrew, we were talking about this in the highlight group chat like a week or something ago about Clemson's, defensive line. And I think you said you think they may be better than last year. Is that the case?
I really do think they're better than last year because they were just playing lights out last night. I think also they've had some guys step up from like to replace Ben Bowler. Trey Lamar was a guy who had, I think, 1 or 2 sacks, a huge fourth down sack as well. But the defensive line is just, I think, just better than last year. The only guy they really lost was Carlos Watkins, and for a lot of these season, Austin Bryant was out injured, and he had 4 sacks alone last night. I think this defensive line is going to give fits to whatever offensive line they go against. And I think Clemson's D as a whole is playing very good as well, but it all starts up front with the defensive line. In my opinion, they're as good as anyone can be. In my opinion, after watching them play these first 2 games, they could be honestly the best in the country.
So how many years have you been at Clemson?
This is actually going to be my 4th year, and so I've gotten to see a lot of good stuff. I've seen Deshaun Watson's first start. I've seen when we beat Notre Dame in the rain. I've seen us when we beat Florida State here. And actually gone to Florida State and watched a big game too. I've seen Louisville last year, of course. Saw us hang 56 on South Carolina, which is always great because it's South Carolina and they're garbage. And then also
they're not the true USC, Andrew.
That's true.
Yeah. Oh, you got that right. We don't refer to them as USC Junior or you suck. So don't worry. I know the real USC is out in Southern California. We all know that around here.
So if you had to pick a game that you've been to in your last 4 years at Clemson, that was your absolute favorite, that was the craziest game you've been to in your 4 years, what would it have to be?
Would you at Death Valley or just any of the games? Because I've been to a couple of away ones too.
I'm going to say Death Valley.
Oh man, definitely Notre Dame. Just because.
And Lyle is just keeling over in studio right now. That hurts him.
I mean, yes, the Notre Dame game was just the reason I picked that one is because not only was it a big game, I think it's the game also that put Clemson on the map, and also it was during a monsoon. Like, and it was pouring down rain, and everyone at the stadium still showed up, and that was probably the loudest I think I've ever heard Louisville as well. But just the whole game, everyone was just going nuts, and I had a front row seat on the hill as well, which made it even more intense for me. But just how Notre Dame just came rolling back, and how you just got me in nerves and everything. But when we made that 2-point conversion, at first I couldn't tell what was going on because I was on the opposite side of the field. But once you see that, man, everyone was just jumping around crazy, like people were dogpiling on each other on the hill. Absolutely nuts. But I mean, all the big games though definitely would have to say the Notre Dame game.
Yeah, that game is drilled right in my head.
One of the last questions for you. We saw Deshaun Watson this past NFL weekend throw his first career touchdown. How do you think he's going to play out in the NFL?
I think he's honestly going to be a solid player. He's going to take some time to grow, but honestly, I look at him a lot like Dak Prescott. He's not going to necessarily be like a amazing necessarily quarterback. People need to realize that Dak Prescott, he's a very solid quarterback, but I don't think necessarily he's elite. But I think Deshaun Watson can be on that level because he can make plays with his legs, and he's going to have a lot of good players around him to help. I mean, of course, their offensive line, Houston, does need some help, but I was very happy to see him throw that touchdown pass today. And I think he's got Tom Savage is going to be on the bench next week, and I think Deshaun's going to have a big rookie year. I don't necessarily think like rookie of the year kind of thing, but I think he'll have a very good year.
Well, good stuff, Andrew. Once again, we really appreciate it. Now, if you guys have not checked him out yet, I don't know what you guys are doing. Cost Sports, he had a great, like that video he made last week, the week 1 video, that was some good stuff. I know it's been a while since you've really been in the editing grind, so I assume we're going to be seeing a week 2 video. Is this correct?
Yes, I do have I am having a busy week with some tests and stuff, but thankfully, because of Hurricane Irma, I do have school off tomorrow, so I will be working on that a lot tomorrow.
All right, great. Well, stay safe out there, Andrew. Stay safe. If you guys want to follow him on Twitter, it is Coster15, but more importantly, Cost Sports on YouTube. All right, Andrew, go Clemson. Hopefully they can prove me wrong because I've been kind of hard on them, but we're going to have to wait and see. Great having you on tonight, and make sure you finish that homework.
Thank you so much, Blake. Go Tigers.
Night, man. All right, guys. It's cool getting some inside analysis on Clemson, especially because, being over here on the West Coast, we don't watch every second of their games, don't go in-depth as much as we can. So hearing a person that actually goes to Clemson, goes to every game, and that's been there with the entire Deshaun Watson era, and now he's witnessing this new era, cool stuff.
Yeah, it is cool stuff. We don't have that East Coast bias out here at Arizona State like some others, but it was cool to have him on the phone and get his insight on things.
Yeah, I think it gives us a different angle because although we're able to watch these games at a better time than people on the East Coast can watch games on the West Coast, so we do get to watch a lot of the games, but of course not every second of them. But we watch everything we can. It's interesting to get a different angle because me personally, I've never met a Clemson fan. I've communicated with people from South Carolina on Twitter that aren't Clemson fans, but I think that's a cool angle to get, especially if he's there sitting in the student section there for all those wild games like the Notre Dame game, and he's gone to a couple away games too. I think that's awesome.
We've been talking about, throughout this past season, the first season and this season, but the East Coast bias, and our first 2 main guests we've had have been all ACC people, so we're sort of sticking with that East Coast bias as well, I guess.
Very, very true.
We also don't really need anyone to break down the Pac-12 over here.
Yeah, we should get a pro Pac-12 guy on here, though.
We had Jordan on the other week.
True, we did have Jordan. We did.
Well, guys, really quickly before we move on to the AP poll, just quick shout out to MJ from University of Oregon. We got viewers all over the place, guys. So MJ, Sco Ducks, great game yesterday. But guys, the AP poll rankings came out today. Now, it's great because last week when we did the show, because there was games on Monday, the rankings didn't come out until Tuesday, so we can get to talk about it. Now we get to. Now, I remember I was talking to Josh about this last night at the Arizona State game, and my top 5 was exactly how it came out. Alabama, number 1, not a shock there. Oklahoma now climbing up to number 2. They got 2 first-place votes. Clemson at number 3. USC back to where they belong at number 4. Penn State at 5. All right, guys. I'm looking at these rankings. For the most part, they're all the same. Notre Dame was actually the only team, sadly, that fell out of the rankings. So looking at this top 5 or even looking at this top 10, what is something that really catches your eye or surprises you or something that you like or don't like?
Top 10, I think the AP top 25, and I think the coaches poll got it entirely right. For the most part, they're pretty much the same. I know in each one, I'm not going to go into it, but Oklahoma and Clemson are flat between 2 and 3. And then looking down at 8, 9, and 10, you've got Oklahoma State, Ohio State, and Florida State and Wisconsin, who are all kind of flipped around. But for the most part, the top 10, top 15 for that matter, is pretty much the same. So I think they got it right for the most part. I have absolutely no complaints about the top 10. I will save my comments for the rest of the rankings for the next few minutes. Lyle?
I think they got it right for the most part. One thing that jumps out to me that I'm a little skeptical about is the fact that they dropped Ohio State 6 spots. It's not like they got upset by some nobody team. They lost to Oklahoma, who was on Saturday when they played the number 5 team in the country. Yes, it was at home. They didn't play a very good game, but I don't drop them 6 spots for losing one game. I would have dropped them to maybe 4 or 5, but 6 spots in 1 week, that's a little much.
In looking at this top 10 is what we're talking about now, is you have half the teams from the Big Ten. And so I think the Big Ten's sort of centralizing themselves right now as the elite conference throughout the first 2 weeks. They have the best record of any conference that has played so far. And so having 5 teams in the top 10, you really can't discredit any of these teams in the Big Ten for what they've done in the first 2 weeks.
It's really tough, though. Ohio State, I mean, you got Clemson, who had a great game over Auburn, USC, who had a phenomenal game over Stanford. So those are some that you can't really move them over. Penn State and Washington, they played some easy teams, especially Washington being, was it Montana or Montana State? So maybe. And they got Michigan again, who was on upset watch for a little bit against Cincinnati. Then Cincinnati kind of blew it at the end. So maybe like putting them above Michigan or Washington would make sense. But I think 8 is fine. I mean, Lyle, you mentioned this to me last week. It's the AP poll. It honestly doesn't mean anything. And you're at 8, so you're still fine. But looking at this, I got no complaints.
Well, but that's exactly my point, is it's the AP poll. They don't often get it right. If this was the college football ranking and they had lost to a team that was ranked in the top 5, you think the college football committee would have dropped them 6 spots? No way. Maybe 2 or 3, not 6.
Now I'm gonna pose you guys a quick question. I remember when I was looking through the Q&A comments, this was one that I actually saw a lot. So we're gonna skip the Q&A portion. We're gonna bring this to right now. Florida and Florida State and Miami obviously didn't play due to Hurricane Irma, so they all fell. So some of the questions we're asking: do you guys think it's fair that due to them not playing a game, it's fair that they fall back?
I understand it. Do I think it's fair? Not really. There are some that fell. I mean, there are a couple teams that had a few teams jump over them, and then we see Florida. I mean, they dropped 2 spots. You saw South Florida drop 1 spot. Is it fair that they all dropped? I don't know. It's a tough question. I don't think it's fair, but I understand it.
You know, Josh, you honestly took the words right out of my mouth. I don't know if it's fair that all these teams are dropping, but with some of the other teams performing the way they did, I understand why the AP poll had to make the moves they made. So thanks to you. You're such a help to the show. I love you, buddy.
Thank you.
Well, what credit to Josh? I'm going to say the same thing. Thanks, Josh.
You're welcome.
I was Blake. I like that. I was going to save that for the Q&A, but you just took it out of my Q&A list, so more time for the Q&A for later, I guess.
I know. Now, guys, I'm looking at this list. As I mentioned, Notre Dame was the only team to fall out of the top 25, which is surprising. Usually, no matter what, we get about 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 teams that are moving. For the most part, it stayed the same. Looking at the top 25, though, aside from UCLA, who jumped in, every team, of course from Alabama or Clemson, but every team either went up or went down, except number 12 LSU, which I find completely shocking considering that they had the upset of the college football year by defeating the Chattanooga Mocs. So LSU, now naturally, they were at home, so they did have that home field advantage, but they defeat the Chattanooga Mocs, and yet somehow they stay at 12. Very shocking. I thought after a game like that, they at least would have hopped into the top 10. So is this just the AP poll just sleeping on the Mocs in general, or what do you make of this?
I think it's the AP poll sleeping on the Mocs. I think it's disappointing. I think all credit to LSU. I think they probably should have moved into the top 10. But you know what? We saw the same story as last year, as Chattanooga jumping out on an SEC opponent and then unfortunately getting upset in the end. So it's disappointing. I feel for Chattanooga, but more so I feel bad for LSU because I think that a huge victory like this and they're not getting the respect that they deserve for it.
Completely agree. I mean, to be honest, I think everybody outside this studio is sleeping on Chattanooga. I mean, come on, guys at the AP poll. This is the second time in a year that second time in as many years Chattanooga's jumped out to a 3-0 lead on a powerhouse. Although Chattanooga were the favorites and ended up getting upset big time. Very, very disappointing. But LSU, I probably would have moved them up to about 4 or 5 after a performance like that against such a powerhouse.
Yeah, I think it was disappointing. I was watching this game. I wasn't with you guys because I was getting ready for the ASU game, as were you guys, but I was sitting there watching like, wow, this first drive, they took 14 plays just marching down the field. I'm thinking, this is going to happen. I'm not sleeping on them. This is going to happen. But then I get a text from somebody that says, hey, I'm sleeping on Chattanooga, and I lost my fuse, went crazy. I almost broke down my door in my apartment.
The best thing was, so Josh and I and his girlfriend who was in town for the week were watching the game in my room while Lyle was next door watching the Notre Dame Georgia game. And, you know, Chattanooga's having this amazing drive. Lyle's kind of coming in and out, and Chattanooga gets a 4th down. And I just go, oh my gosh, is it the same kicker from last year? And I'm like, Lyle, get in here. And we're anticipating it. They're like not showing it at all. And then after about 20 or 30 seconds, here comes the exact same kicker from last year. I'm going to put a photo right now on screen of what he looks like. Nothing against the guy, But this guy for being a kicker, hey, good for you. For 2 years in a row, as Lyle mentioned, Chattanooga jumped out to a 3-0 lead, and then my Twitter started going insane. I probably just said something that offended Josh, as I do every week, so I do apologize for that, Josh.
I'm offended.
Oh, well, here at the Harris Highlight Show, we say some things that are offensive. Sometimes it might be even to our own crew members, but yeah, Chattanooga, starting the season 0-2. You hate to see it, but hey.
Stop it. Cut it out.
Oh, my goodness.
I have a glandular problem.
That'll be $60.
It'll be $60.
What is this?
That's the song I was just humming. That's what BK just found.
I thought that's
to play.
from Winnie the Pooh. Whenever they're seeing like the heffalumps, like boom, 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 boom. Anyway, guys,
Stewie on Family Guy.
when we do the Harris Highlight Show late at night, all this kind of stuff happens. We just get a little crazy. But Chattanooga, like I said, starting the season 0-2. But guys, it is time to look ahead at next year, as Chattanooga Mocs will travel to Kentucky to play on the Kentucky Wildcats. Now, I know what you're thinking. It's Kentucky, doesn't have that same cachet. It is still an SEC school. They are a basketball powerhouse, and they are going to take them down next year. You heard it here first.
Third time's the charm, baby.
Third time is a charm.
Don't you mean they're going to mock the world?
They are going to mock the world. And also, when I sent out the tweet saying, don't sleep on Chattanooga, mock the world, the official Chattanooga Twitter page liked my tweet.
I think they did that last year. I remember them doing that last year. Because I remember getting a like last year from them as well. And you and I were both like, hey, the Chattanooga liked our tweet. And then
maybe they did.
I think they did.
Maybe they did. But guys,
It was probably because I was talking to some people at Chattanooga and telling them and trying to push the Harris Highlight Show at the Chattanooga football team.
No, they just like the tweet because they know that no one's sleeping on them. But I'm looking at the roundabout outside of this top 25. Now, like I said, no real changes. Stanford, they did 5 fall spots. That's a tongue twister. Fall 5 spots to number 19. But when you lose to one of the best teams in the country, that's not too bad, especially considering that Ohio State fell 6 spots. So there you go. But, guys, I don't know if that's a misprint or something. Lyle, I don't know if it's the same with you, but at 25, can someone tell me what that team is at 25?
Does that say the UCLA Bruins?
It in fact does, Lyle. Now, UCLA is coming off, as Josh mentioned, a very tough and hard-fought battle with the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors. Now, they did play in front of about 15,000 fans. Now, I know that sounds like a lot, but the place holds 90,000 or so. So, once again, UCLA, I don't know what's the deal, but you guys need to get a better crowd. But, guys, UCLA's ranked 25th. Now, obviously, there are people that do this for a living. They rank teams. Now, as we saw with Texas A&M, they barely were able to beat Nicholls State, or Nichols, or whatever it is nowadays. Yeah. And Hawaii, they are Hawaii. They're not that good of a team. So you have 2 wins early in the season against not-so-good teams. But here comes UCLA out of the gates at 25. And I remember we touched up on this. We didn't think that they were going to be as bad as they were last year, but we were thinking maybe like 6 wins or so, 7 wins. Do you guys believe, and I'm going to start with Josh, that they are overhyping UCLA too early on in the year?
They are overhyping UCLA than I expected they would. I think UCLA, I mean, you're playing Pac-12 football. This is still a tough schedule. They have to go to Washington, they have to go to Utah, and they have to go to USC. Now, you'd think, hey, they're playing 25 miles apart. That can't be a huge factor. Like, home field advantage can't be huge. It's massive. USC can fill up a stadium full of 90,000 people. UCLA can't fill up half their stadium. So that place is going to be rocking too on November 18th, especially if USC remains consistent throughout the season. And that's not even to mention that in 2 weeks, they're going to Stanford. So UCLA has a very tough schedule, and I see them losing all 4 of those games that I just mentioned. So there's 4 losses right there. Colorado's still a tough team. They have them at home. Arizona has looked okay this season so far. Nobody hurt me. I think U of A has looked decent.
They almost beat Houston.
They almost
last
beat
night.
Houston. They did not win, so there's their first loss of the year. But Arizona, again, could cause some problems for them. And then you know what? We'll touch on ASU later. I don't think ASU's out of it just yet. We'll see what happens next week with Texas Tech. In fact, I'm going to give ASU until week 4 as soon as they see a Pac-12 opponent in Oregon until I start writing them off. But ASU on the road against UCLA, Arizona State travels very well to these 2 Southern California schools, so you never know. But this UCLA team, I still think they go 6-6. I am not sold yet. I think Josh Rosen's a good quarterback. I think he's the most overrated quarterback in the country. you know what? Until UCLA proves me wrong, I'm saying they're going 6-6 or less.
Man, for those who get the SpongeBob reference, let's call that one a tough act to follow. But no, I agree with what Josh is saying. I don't think UCLA is going to finish the year with 9 wins or more. You look at their schedule like he just touched on. They play Stanford. That's a loss. Washington, USC, Utah, Oregon. Honestly, I say they lose those games too. I say they finish 7-5, maybe 8-4 at best, but they're not going to take down any of these powerhouse Pac-12 teams. So they can stay at 25 for now because, frankly, they've earned it. They've won their first 2 games in dramatic fashion. But come week 4 when they play Stanford, they're going to fall way out.
But then again, if we're looking at by that logic really quickly, then we should be saying Maryland should be ranked as well.
Yeah.
I mean, Maryland beat Texas.
Well, according to
They
this
scored
really
63
quickly,
points yesterday.
I do have the points. Now, according to this, Maryland would be 26, 27, 28, 29. They'd be the 31st ranked team, so they're about 1 or 2 wins away from cracking that top 25.
Yeah, and you know what? If Maryland beat a decent Texas team, then they beat up on, who did they play this weekend? Towson?
I don't even know.
And
I didn't
then-
even recognize the name of the team,
And
honestly.
UCLA beat a not very good Texas A&M team, and then they beat Hawaii. So by that logic, Maryland should be in the top 25 as well. And we also haven't touched on it, but I think Notre Dame should be ranked as well.
And going back to what we were talking about earlier, the whole Florida dilemma with those teams, I think it's tough to drop them for not playing because obviously we all know what happened with the hurricanes out in Florida and the lower East Coast and in the Gulf of Mexico and in Texas. And these Florida teams didn't do anything to negate themselves from being ranked. There were just other teams that proved themselves better. So I think, honestly, you could have kept those Florida teams in the same spot in which they were ranked in the previous week.
Now, really quickly, I want to touch upon the teams that just missed the crack. Now, guys, we got a lot of Pac-12 teams that are in this. I mean, we got USC, Washington, we got Stanford, Washington State, and UCLA. Now, there's some other teams. Utah, they had the most votes that didn't make it, so they're ranked 26. They're borderline making it. You got Colorado, who got the 3rd most amount of votes. They're borderline making it. Oregon got the 5th most amount of votes. They're borderline making it. And looking at this list as well, Cal, of all teams, they're getting some votes as well. So these Pac-12 teams, they're coming hard. South Carolina got some votes as well. Notre Dame, looks like they're about 32. Now, here's one really quick, guys, to touch upon this because I know we could spend hours talking about this. San Diego State did get 16 votes. Arizona State lost to San Diego State last night. And I know everyone was bumped and everything, thinking, how can we lose to a non-Power 5 school? But I remember, I think it was 2 weeks ago, we talked about Power 5 teams we feel or non-Power 5 teams that can make a push. And none of us even mentioned San Diego State. Obviously, they miss Pumphrey, their amazing running back from last year. But they didn't lose that much talent, and they were a very good team last year. So San Diego State, I remember I saw some post on Instagram where this is their first ever win at a Pac-12 team. So this team, San Diego State, they're actually pretty good.
It's their first one ever not at a Pac-12 team against a Pac-12 team total.
Really?
They were 0-26 all-time against Pac-12 teams.
And leave it to ASU to defeat that. And also, guys, get this as well. Michigan State got a vote. So I think they might be coming up. And I know I keep saying one final thing. Texas Tech has 2 votes. So there you go. Texas Tech actually might be a good team for this upcoming matchup this week. Once again, ASU, Texas, whatever. We'll touch up on that later in the show. But guys, obviously the second best game of the weekend was between Ohio State and Oklahoma. Just like I predicted, Ohio State would lose, and their quest to 4 losses officially is underway. It should be 2 losses already because of that Week 1 game versus IU. Brady, we both know Indiana deserved to win that game.
They did.
I know, but Oklahoma, they won by 15 points. Now, the first half, maybe through the third quarter, it was a close game. Ohio State was winning, and then all of a sudden, this guy by the name of Baker Mayfield just took off. He finished the game nearly 400 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, and with the most impressive stat of all, 27 of 35, almost 100% accuracy. Guys, Oklahoma, what do you guys think of the game? I know we didn't get to see most of it because we were at the ASU game, but what a game.
Yeah, I thought that going back and looking at the highlights for everything that we did not see, I thought that Oklahoma looked really good. I think Ohio State is still going to be better than you expected, Blake. or expect, I should say. Oklahoma, I think they are better than I expected, but I am still 100% on the Oklahoma State hype train. I think Oklahoma State takes that conference. I'm not taking anything away from Baker Mayfield or the Oklahoma Sooners because clearly they were the better team, and it wasn't like this game really could have gone either way. I think that Mayfield and the Sooners deserved it, and I don't think there's people could argue, I'm sure there are people that argue that Ohio State should have won the game or could have won the game, but from what I saw, I think that Mayfield and the Sooners deserved it completely. I think it goes back to that USC-Washington game last year where the score doesn't totally look like a blowout, but for the most part, Oklahoma ended up dominating for a majority of the game.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Oklahoma really showed up and impressed on the road in Columbus, and they frankly blew them out. They completely outplayed them. They were the better team. You look at the second half numbers, putting up 28 points in the second half. And Ohio State, Blake picked them to lose 4 games this year. I know I was talking earlier that they shouldn't drop 6 spots for losing 1 game, and I don't think they should. But having said that, I might be on board with Blake that they could lose 4 to 5 games. You look at JT Barrett, and maybe this is sort of a hot take. Maybe I'm kind of going out on a limb with this, but from what I've seen from him as a pocket passer, especially this year, to me, he doesn't look much different than somebody like Denard Robinson out there. He simply does not have the ability to throw the ball downfield, doesn't have a great throwing arm, doesn't have the pinpoint accuracy that you look for. So, and if he's supposed to be the focal point of this team, and especially this offense, and he's not showing up and doing his part, then why am I to believe that Ohio State can have another 10-win season?
In looking at this team and looking at the 2 big powerhouses in the Big Ten and what people usually think, it could be different this year with what these teams' records are, but in looking at Michigan and Ohio State, yes, Michigan won this week and Ohio State lost. But Michigan was struggling for a while with this Cincinnati Bearcat team at home when a much better Oklahoma team came into the horseshoe in Columbus and I wouldn't say easily won, but they had their way almost the entire game. So the 2 big teams in the Big Ten didn't have a great weekend. One of them won, but one of them was losing to, what are they ranked now, 4th in the country? Second in the country in the AP poll to Oklahoma. So both these 2 powerhouse teams in the Big Ten are going to surprise some people and not in a good way.
Isn't that amazing, though, how last year Ohio State goes into Oklahoma, gets the win, and then this year Oklahoma goes into Ohio State, and they come out with the win. So you got to love that kind of stuff. Now, here's a quick question for you guys. I don't know if you guys saw it, but at the very end of the game, Baker Mayfield ran out with the Oklahoma flag, and he just stomped it. And the best part is listening to the
Save it for the Q&A. Save this for the Q&A, because I got some good questions about this.
No, this way we get more questions out, because this is we're staying on topic. But I remember the best part was listening to Chris Fowler and Kurt Herbstreit as they're commentating this, and they're going, "Oh, he's running out with the flag. No, he's not going to. Oh, yep, he just stomped it." So, guys, really quickly, about 20, 30 seconds on each of your opinion. What do you guys think of that?
This all stemmed from last year. Ohio State sang I believe it's called Carmen, Ohio, and he was calling it the fight song. I believe that's the alma mater. Again, someone please comment and tell us if that's incorrect, but I believe they sang Carmen, Ohio on the field, and they all lock arms. They did it right in front of the Oklahoma student section, stabbing it on the opposing turf. It's not, though. It really isn't, and this is all bias aside, this is Baker Mayfield.
Post-game.
This is Baker Mayfield feeling upset about being quote-unquote disrespected and just being embarrassed at home last year. It was an embarrassing loss. But to come in and kind of have this mindset, go in and get the win by all means. Go ahead and wave your flag by all means. But to go to the field and purposely wave it on the opposing team's logo and stab the field with your flag, I think that's classless. Because San Diego State, so I had a friend on San Diego State, I won't go into it, but I went over to the San Diego State section after we lost to meet up with him after the game and tell him I was proud of him and congrats. And what did San Diego State do? The team marched right over to their fans, they locked arms, and they sang the alma mater. And not a single Sun Devil fan is up in arms about it. Why? Because they deserve to do that. Why would they not deserve to do that? So for him to take offense to it and to purposely try to disrespect Ohio State,
I think it's classless.
And he did it. If you're going to do that, at least get the flag to stick in the ground. It just sort
Yeah.
of fell over when he tried doing it.
And
so.
really
Quickly, if I can defend Tommy Trojan, they do this at Notre Dame, and they do it at, I don't think they do it at UCLA anymore, but they don't perform at halftime unless it's a home game or unless it's at Notre Dame because they have an agreement with Notre Dame. And so it's not like he's stabbing the logo. It's if the other team allows them
Understood.
to.
Understood.
That's what I was going to say. I'm actually going to back you up with the Tommy Trojan thing is if a team tells him not to do it, he's not going to do it.
Understood.
And if I'm Baker Mayfield, I get that you're fired up. This is a huge win. You guys are looking like you're in the playoff contention for sure now and maybe even a front runner behind Alabama. And if you want to chirp at some fans and talk trash to some fans and wave your flag, that's one thing. But on the road, you can't be sticking it in somebody else's field. I think that's just over the line if I'm Baker Mayfield. Again, be happy about the win, but don't cross the line.
It's not even the field; it's the logo. I think that's what I don't like about it.
If he did it in the corner where in front of their own fan section, that'd be different.
I'd be saying good for you if
Yeah.
he did it like that. I agree.
Well, I'm going to go against all of you guys. I personally love it. I think it's great.
I thought it was cool.
I think it's awesome. I mean, we never see it. If Ohio State, and like I said, I didn't take the loss, so it's easy for me to say. If you have a problem with it, don't let Oklahoma come into your stadium and win. Baker Mayfield, he had an amazing performance in his amazing game. And like I said, he's not doing it to say, like, middle fingers to you, Ohio State. They were amped up after a win. No, I don't think so. I mean,
I think that's what he's saying.
That's exactly what he was doing, Blake.
Last year was a tough loss, but still, they were very proud of the win, and they were making their mark, and they're letting everyone know that Oklahoma is ready to stay. But speaking of ready to stay, guys, USC... Now, I know Josh was the only one here that picked Stanford to win. I think he said like a bunch of people from the LA Times or somewhere else, they all picked Stanford to win as well.
I went to a bunch of different outlets yesterday, and I saw that almost every other outlet that I went to, whether it was, ESPN, Fox Sports, I won't go into all of them, but I went to, I believe, 10 or 12 different sites, and a majority of the experts picked I want to say, I remember seeing about 3 or 4 people pick USC. So.
Well, Josh, they did get the win over Stanford. Now we're going to give you,
from me.
because the show is running a little long, we're going to give you 2 minutes, and the timer officially begins now.
Well, Blake and I watched the first couple minutes of the game, or we watched the first quarter, and I think a majority of the second.
Yeah.
And then I listened to Pete Arbogast and John Jackson on 710 ESPN LA. Oh my goodness, I don't know what happened. I need some water. But listened to them on the way to the game. We were on the light rail to ASU, and I was listening to it, and they sounded good. But what I thought was incredible was USC doubled Stanford's passing yards, but more impressively, they doubled Stanford's rushing yards, and USC had over 600 all-purpose yards. So they proved me wrong. And a side note, I'm gonna have a hot take in a minute, but I'm gonna wrap up my thoughts on the game with this. Over the summer, I worked for a California Collegiate League baseball team, and we became friends and colleagues with some guys on other teams. And one of the interns for the Academy Barons in that league was a USC senior by the name of Jeffrey Dubroff, and he's one of their radio guys. He's a journalism guy, and we text back and forth all the time because he's an SC guy. I love watching SC. I'm a season ticket holder. So we were texting back and forth, and I told him that I thought that Stanford was going to beat SC, and he texted me last night and said that was the most complete USC football game he has seen from that team since he's been at SC. He said that was the best performance he's ever seen, better than the Rose Bowl, better than the 50-0 game over UCLA. He said that was the best and most complete USC team he's ever seen. And I don't know if I agree with him 100%, but I understand where he's coming from. And finally, for my hot take, I'd love to hear your guys' opinions on this. USC's new freshman running back, Stephen Carr, is going to be better than Reggie Bush.
Well, first off, I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to ask about that because remember someone said that was the most complete game they've ever seen. And secondly, I mean, like I said, I didn't see the entire game, but pretty much from opening kickoff, that was total domination from USC. I didn't think at one point they were going to lose that game, so that one I agree with. The second one, there will never be another Reggie Bush, but this Carr kid, he looks... I mean, we've seen some running backs, like Ronald Jones, Buck Allen. We've seen some explosive backs. I think this kid is special. I don't think he's going to surpass Reggie Bush, but I think he's the next best thing.
I think he's unreal, and I think this USC core of running backs is the best they've had in a long time. I think it might be the best in the country because you have Malapai, you have Cedric Ware, and then of course you have those big two in Stephen Carr and Ronald Jones. But Stephen Carr, it's a hot take. I could be wrong. I don't even know if I believe it 100%. But I really think that this guy could be on the level of Reggie Bush. He's incredible.
You know how he could be?
I'm sorry.
In about 5 to 6 weeks when they play Notre Dame, if he pushes Sam Darnold into the end zone from the 2-yard line, then maybe he'll surpass Reggie Bush.
Does it have to be as time expires? Or can it just be like first touchdown of the game?
At any point. But no, I'm with you. Stephen Carr, from what I've seen from the kid, he's unreal. He had the big run against Western Michigan and the 119 yards last week. The kid doesn't look like he's going to be stopped by any cost, and I think he's going to be one of the best running backs in the country by the season's end.
Like you said last week, Josh, our good friend Pete Arbogast calls him SC, and no better nickname for him there.
All right, guys, so SC did get the win. Now, honestly, I don't know if they're going to lose the game the rest of the season. We're going to have to wait and see, but that was the game that was scaring me the most coming into it. Glad they got the win. And Lyle, I know you want to talk about this for a few minutes. First of all, touch upon the Notre Dame-Georgia game. I know they lost by a point, and that hurt you. That was a very good game, though. Notre Dame showed some good signs, although Georgia didn't have, Eason starting. Also, there was another late-night game that I'm gonna let you handle that I feel a lot of people just honestly missed out because it was truly a game to remember.
Okay, so starting with Notre Dame, they did lose 20-19 in South Bend. Yes, the freshman Jake Fromm played. Credit to Georgia. I thought it was a close game. Like I predicted, I thought Notre Dame was going to come out with the win simply because it was at home. But that Georgia defense, from everything I watched, wow, were they scary. I've talked a lot about Josh Adams on this show. Well, he was averaging 2.8 yards a carry in that game. 53 yards on 19 attempts. They could not run the ball for the life of them in that game, and Brandon Wimbush really couldn't get it going either, especially in the second half when he needed to most. So, can Notre Dame still make a playoff push? Can they win out? It's possible. They have some tough games against some teams like USC and Stanford. I see them maybe going more 9-3 or so this year, but credit to Georgia. That's a very good football team. They could very easily win the SEC East, especially when they get Jake Eason back healthy. But good game all around. We'll see how both teams go from here the rest of the year. And I'll let everybody touch up on this one in a minute because I'm sure you guys might have some opinions on it as well. But then we're going to look at Washington State and Boise State. The Cougars were down 21 points at one point in this game. 21 points, and oh, by the way, Luke Falk left the game because of a head injury, so they had to put in their backup quarterback, Tyler Helinski. The guy throws for 240 yards and 3 touchdowns. Game goes to not 1, not 2, but 3 overtimes after Wazoo marches a 21-point comeback, and in triple overtime, they score a game-winning touchdown to take it over Boise State, a team that they lost to last year. Talk about some momentum for the Washington State Cougars. They're now 2-0. They're currently ranked, I think it's 20, if I'm not mistaken. But, man, what a performance. What are your guys' thoughts on this game?
Well, I'll jump in right off the bat, and I didn't get to watch this game live like Blake touched on earlier. My girlfriend was here, and we were hanging out with you guys, and then we were late coming back from the game. So I didn't get to watch the end of it, but I was able to catch some of the highlights. First off, as I get into this, I will say throughout the course of this season that the top 2 quarterbacks in the Pac-12 conference are Sam Darnold and then Luke Falk. So with him going out of this game, I thought that was huge. That's big. But then to have your backup come in and lead you to a triple overtime victory, not only does that show depth, but it shows persistence, and it shows that this team truly has that next man up mentality. Not only do they get a huge typical Pac-12 after dark win, but they do this against a team that they lost to last year and a team in Boise State that is still a very competitive ball club. So all in all, I think this is a huge win for Washington State. I don't think they're going to get a whole lot of love from it. especially not as it happened, kind of like how UCLA had the huge comeback against Texas A&M. I know this wasn't as big as a comeback of as big of a comeback as UCLA's, but because this was so late, not a whole lot of people were watching.
Yeah, they actually dropped one spot in the rankings because of it. So they're 21 now.
But that is impressive, though, that, like I said, I remember I looked at the scoreboard and they were down by a ton, and then I don't know if it was Lau or someone, but they just goes, they're tied? And it was like complete shock because they had no idea. But Boise State, very good team, so surprised they did fall. But very impressive, though, with Luke Falk going out of the game, that their backup quarterback can step up like that and lead the team to a victory in 3 overtimes. Very impressive. But, guys, it is time for the Q&A, and a little fun addition to the Q&A this week. We are going to be having some of our viewers call in. So I know Brady is currently manning the phone, waiting for a call at any moment. The first one is going to be from Drew. And the best part is we have no idea what question he's going to be asking, so he's going to hit us with something, and we're going to have to wait and see what it is.
All right, well, before we do that, you just want to jump into the Q&A now?
Sure, let's jump into the Q&A right now. Oh,
well, hey, there we
Look
go.
at that, what a
You guys
perfect
talk
sound
for a second.
effect.
Let me answer the phone.
I like how you can even hear it in the studio. It makes it sound more official.
Well, I think before Brady had his mic off, which is why the last couple of times we've had callers you couldn't hear it, because Brady will leave our mics on but turn his on and off when he's going back and forth between queuing up sounds, operating the board if he's looking for something on his computer. But a lot of the times he turns his microphone off so that he could answer the phones. Where now, I don't think he was expecting it right away. So there you go.
It was perfect timing. So Brady, whenever we're good to go, just give us a good old thumbs up.
Hey, he's still working on it, but I'm sure we're going to get a lot of good questions this week. I like this idea, though, Blake, that you're having callers call in for some live Q&A.
All right, we got Drew. Drew, are you there, and can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear y'all. Hey, how are y'all doing?
We're doing great. How are you?
I'm doing just well, thank you.
Now, quick question. How do you pronounce your last name?
Tinio.
Tinio? All right, we got Drew,
yeah.
Tinio. All right, Drew.
Blake's not great with last names, Drew.
It's one of the things I wasn't born with. Now, Drew, quick question. How old are you, and where are you from?
I am 18 years old, and I am from the Waco, Texas area.
Oh, nice. So are you a Baylor fan?
Yes. These first few weeks have been not exactly what we thought they would be.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's not looking good for you guys.
No, but the rebuild is going to be a little bit longer than we thought.
No, you guys got it. You guys still got a new Solomon as quarterback. Do you think you guys should bench him first off?
After this last game, you would think so, but the offensive line has had a lot of struggles, but I think that we should be able to put in our quarterback from last year, Zach Smith. He shined really well in the Cactus Bowl against Boise State, and so in this game, a road game on the road against Duke, who played pretty well last week against Northwestern, I think they should start Zach Smith in this game.
Yeah, it definitely will be interesting to see. So, all right, Drew, what kind of questions do you got for us this week?
All right. Well, my first question is, y'all played Texas Tech last year, and I'm pretty sure Tech fans hate the name Kalen Balaj. How do y'all think he's going to do this week?
I mean, I don't know if he's going to have 8 touchdowns again, but first couple weeks he's been okay. I wouldn't say he's been phenomenal, but with a defense like Texas Tech that's definitely subpar to say the least, I think this could be his breakout week in 2017.
Yeah, I think that more so beyond Kalen Balaj, I think the ASU offense really needs to wake up this week. This is a defense in Texas Tech where it feels like ASU's almost looking in the mirror, or it feels like ASU might even, believe it or not, have a better defense. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Devils can do this week. But Kalen Balaj, I'm hoping that he's going to have a breakout game because I think he's one of the most underrated backs in the country.
Last year, like you said, Kalen Balaj had 8 touchdowns in that one game. Going into that game, he had 8 career touchdowns. So definitely put up big numbers. I think he's going to do big things because last year his big breakout game was against this Texas Tech team. A much different Texas Tech team this year. They're still going to run the air raid, and they're still going to throw the ball over the Arizona State defense. But I think Balaj will have his best game of the year thus far in the 3rd week of the season.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely can't top. Well, I mean, who knows? Stranger things have happened, but 8 touchdowns is insane. But he is going against that Texas Tech defense. So my guess, I think he'll probably get like 3 or 4. But what we saw last year was, I remember, like, we always talk about this. we didn't really realize what was going on until we got to about 5 or 6, and we started checking our phones and going, wait, does he have 6? Does he have 7? Does he have 8? So Texas Tech, I'm sure for those fans, it still kind of hurts a little. But that was an exciting game. I think the final score was 67 to 55. So hopefully we'll get another high-scoring game this week. Got any others for us, Drew?
Yes. Since y'all are Arizona State fans from the Pac-12, who do you think will be the dark horse to potentially contend for the Pac-12 title?
Well, I know really quickly, Josh, I think it was last week we talked about this, he thought Arizona State could be a potential dark horse. I'm just going to go to him first. After last night's loss to San Diego State, do you think that's still the case?
Well, when I explained, I said that I didn't think ASU would compete for the title or even the South, but I thought they were still going to be a decent team. I said earlier in the show I'm not going to write them off just yet. I'm going to wait until they play Oregon, and we'll see how they do against Justin Herbert. But if I'm looking at a dark horse in the Pac-12, I guess I'd have to go with Oregon. I'm not a fan of UCLA. Utah, I just don't think is there, and I wouldn't even consider Stanford a sleeper or a dark horse, and kind of the same thing with Washington State. So I'm going to go with Oregon.
I'm going to take Washington State, especially after they got that win last night. Like I said, that's a huge momentum shifter. They can really build off that. I know they have some tough games this year with USC, at Oregon, Stanford, but I can see them honestly taking the North. I know that's going to be tough. If they can beat UW in that Apple Cup, I think it's very possible that they can contend.
I'm going to go with Colorado. We really haven't heard a lot from them this season. They're 2-0 to start off the year, and they have one of the easier schedules in the Pac-12, so I think Colorado could be one of those teams to look out for as a sleeper.
I mean, I hate to be that guy and steal your guys' answers, but I really like the Oregon pick. They have exceeded my expectations this early in the year. And Justin Herbert, I mean, we kind of gave our friend BV a little grief for picking him to win the Heisman, but his numbers are there right now. And if he can lead Oregon to maybe 9, 10 or so wins, that pick won't be crazy, but that's ours. But, I mean, for you, Drew, who do you think might be the Pac-12 sleeper?
At the beginning of the year, I thought maybe Washington State. They were a team that, at the beginning of last year, they also an FCS team, but they came out of nowhere to end the year, and hey, they were a game or two away from potentially contending for it. But they did struggle this past week with Boise State, so I have questions about their defense. But definitely with Luke Falk at quarterback, he's a really good quarterback, and I think they could make some more noise this year under Mike Leach.
Well, those were some very good questions, Drew. Now, before we let you go, one quick one for you. Do you think Baylor picks up their first win of the year at Duke?
I unfortunately do not think they will. They'll play a lot better. They play a lot better defensively against UTSA, only giving up 17 points compared to 48 against Liberty. But with that offensive line struggling and the inexperience at receiver, which has been a problem, I don't think they will. I think they could get their first win probably with Iowa State and then maybe Kansas too. But like I said earlier, it's going to be a long process for the Bears.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, Drew, Jarrett Stidham only threw for 78 yards on Saturday.
That did make me feel a little bit better, but Clemson's defensive line is just scary good.
Yeah, like I said, really quickly, I'm just looking at Baylor's schedule, and if they don't get it versus Duke, they got Oklahoma, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, West Virginia, and then Texas until they get Kansas. You guys might be looking at an 0-8 start, so hopefully you guys can get this win versus Duke and turn that season around, because it's not looking good there in Waco.
It is not.
All right, well, Drew, once again, we really appreciate you staying up with us, making the call, and we'll definitely get you on another show later in the year because, like I said, it's cool getting the different aspects of college viewers from all around the country. So, like I said, I really appreciate it. And I believe your Twitter handle is D_Tinio4. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. I also have an Instagram by that same name. I'm a little more social on Instagram, but
perfect. Yeah. So, for all the listeners out there, make sure you follow him, especially if you're a Baylor fan. Well, go Bears, Drew. Sick 'em, and hopefully you guys get that win against Duke.
Thank y'all so much.
Have a good night, my man.
All right, you too.
I'm digging this.
Yeah, so we got a Clemson, we got a Baylor, and we got a caller in a few minutes named James. It'll be interesting to see who his team is and where he's from. But Brady, until we get that call in, let's do some Q&A questions from our viewers.
All right, guys. Here, the first one we're going to start off is Gus Malzahn on the hot seat after this loss to Clemson.
I could have called that. I could have called it.
Literally called?
All right, here we go.
Perfect timing.
Well, you know what? While Brady's answering the phone. Is Gus Malzahn on the hot seat? I don't think so after one loss to a team like Clemson. It'll be interesting to watch the rest of the year, but as of right now, no.
There's no way. There's no way.
Who knows? But I like this. Back to back, we get the caller. All right, James, are you there and can you hear us?
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
No worries, James. All right, quick questions for you. How old are you and where are you from?
I'm 16 from Northern California, and I'm an Oregon Ducks fan.
Ah, Oregon Ducks, and you're from NorCal, so I got to ask, why Oregon?
That's where I grew up most of my life, and yeah.
Oh,
and then
nice.
I moved here.
Nice.
Where are you from in NorCal?
About a couple hours north of San Francisco.
All right.
Okay, well, go Ducks. I'm sure
So
you're
very, very north.
very happy to see what they've been doing. So, all right, James, what do you got for us this week?
Okay, so you guys know that the Big 12 is probably the most unstable conference in college football.
We
so
agree on
could you name
that.
a couple teams? Could you name a couple teams that you could see leaving and a couple teams that you could see joining?
Quickly starting it off, I see Houston joining. I think they're my favorite to join. I would like. I don't want the Pac-12 to expand, but I would like to see if it does. I know who I would want to join, and one of those teams would be Boise State. However, I think a better fit for the Broncos would be to join the Big 12. Even out that conference a little bit more. Maybe a conference championship and a couple different divisions in the conference that are more stable. So I would like to see Houston and Boise State. If I'm looking at teams to leave, I'm not a huge fan of Iowa State in that conference. I'm not a big fan, so I would like to see them leave. I think they would even... I don't even know about a Mountain West, but I think there are some other conferences that I could see them in rather than a Power 5, and that's no disrespect to them. I think they're a good football team, but I think they would have more success outside of the Big 12.
Josh took the answer right out of my mouth. I think Boise State would be a perfect fit to join the Big 12 because they're competitive every year. They're not in a conference that's very competitive, and the Big 12 is fairly competitive. I mean, you kind of got, it's a little bit top heavy, but I think Boise State, if they were added to the Big 12, it would only help the conference.
I don't think there should be any teams taken out of it because right now they're the Big 12 parentheses 10, and you should add 2 more teams to it to make it the Big 12 again. So I don't really think you're going to take out any of these teams, but to make it a true Big 12 again, I think Josh and Lyle both said it, the Boise State's the perfect geographical and also competitive-wise, the best fit to join this Big 12 conference.
Once again, taking the words out of my mouth, I think those are some perfect ones. Now, in regards to leaving, I'm surprised you guys didn't touch up on this, and I think Kansas. I think, one, if they can't get this figured out in the next few years, not only can we see them leaving, I could see potentially them being denoted to the FCS because they have been, I know you laugh, but with how terrible they have been, I mean, how long can they keep this up? Constant years of winning 1 or 2 games?
They've already won 1 game this year.
Do you think if they were in Conference USA, they would only win 1 game a year? No way.
They can't go down to FCS. They got to stay FBS. But if I'm not surprised, I wouldn't be surprised if they left. I wouldn't be surprised if not only if they left, but if the Big 12 Conference forcibly asked them to leave.
Well,
I would not be surprised, but if they did, they had to go to another conference.
Well, is this just in football? Because they're obviously not going to leave in basketball. I don't know if that plays any
that's
factor
why it's not
into
going to
it.
happen.
Well, I mean, it's like, who knows? Who knows? But very good question, James. Do you got any others for us?
Well, I was thinking maybe a really good game this year will be Kansas-Baylor.
Oh, that's...
yeah, it could be.
As a Baylor fan, yeah, probably.
That may get added to our list of, as Blake would say, the worst
of the worst.
The worst.
Unfortunately.
I think that might be a potential worst of the worst. So I'm going to ask you really quick. Kansas-Baylor, who do you think would take that game?
Baylor only beat UTEP by 7 points this weekend.
I mean,
but
it's tough.
Yeah, it's a coin flip.
All right, James. So really quickly, before we let you go, you said you're a Ducks fan. How do you think the Ducks are going to finish the year?
Well, I could easily see them losing Washington, Stanford, but easily a 8-win season out of them.
I mean, I guess you guys will take that. It was a down year last year. Also, Justin Herbert, do you think this guy is the real deal?
I mean, we'll have to see. Nebraska was a good defensive team, but nothing special. But, yeah, we'll have to see for sure.
All right, James, once again, thank you so much for calling in. His Twitter handle is at JamesB32101. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, James, once again, thank you so much. Go Oregon, and we're going to have a very interesting game in about 2 weeks when you guys come up here to ASU.
an easy win, that's for sure.
Down here. Okay, whoa, hold on there, James. You are 100% right.
Yeah, you guys are probably going to get an easy win. All right, James. You have a good night, my man.
All right, thank you. Bye.
That was very interesting. Northern California, I knew he was going to say Ducks. I don't know why, but I knew he was going to say Oregon. And the best part about that call was I thought the Big 12 question was great, but also I thought his answer about Herbert was very balanced and very honest. And I thought that was a great way to answer that question.
Yeah, I like that.
Wasn't too Brady Vernon-esque.
Yeah. So, guys, this week, that was some very awesome stuff. We had, like I said, Clemson, Baylor, and Oregon all across the country. So, if you're listening to the show either live or whenever we post this on YouTube, we would more than love to have you guys call in. So if you're interested in calling in and just talking football or asking us a question, you got to send me a message on Twitter at Blake H. Harris, and we will do our best to get you on. As I mentioned, we film the show usually at 11 or midnight Eastern, so hopefully if you can stay up that late, we'll love to have you on. But Brady,
especially if you're a Notre Dame fan, please call in.
Definitely not. If you're a Notre Dame fan, we don't like to distance ourselves from fans. But if you're a Notre Dame, UCLA, or U of A fan, we will not be accepting calls.
That's funny. We will.
Those were our last callers of the evening because we got to move on to, of course, the Q&A YouTube comments. There were a lot. Brady, last time I checked, I think there were about 160.
I believe at this exact moment, Blake, precisely 152.
Oh, wow. So I was off. All right, now, before we start this, I'm going to look each and every one of you in the eye. These are questions and answers, but let's please, for the love of everything that is good, try to keep these answers as quick and brief as possible so we can answer as many as we can. So if it's honestly just a one-word answer, beautiful. If it's one we have to explain a little, let's try to keep it as quickly as possible because, like I said, we want to knock out as many as we can. I'm looking at the clock. We got about 10, 15 minutes. Brady, let's go.
I'm about to spew a 600-word essay right now.
That first question better not be USC related.
It's not. This first question is actually one of the coolest ones I think we've ever gotten. Would you guys be open to getting NCAA 14, get updated rosters, and each week post a video of you guys having a competition and bracket playing the best of the best game each week?
Really quickly, just my 2 cents. I did see this comment because it was the top-rated comment. I think this is the greatest idea ever.
I do too, and I think this needs to happen.
Okay, so I actually typed a response to this question, and I deleted it. And I said, it wouldn't be fair. Brady and I would meet in the championship 10 times out of 10.
And I'd run all over you.
And the reason why I deleted it was because I didn't want it to sound like I was coming off too cocky, because I know darn well that Brady is going to do this dumb running play up the middle that he does every single time, and he would beat me. Also, I killed Blake over the summer.
Hey, Josh, didn't you lead, was it San Jose State to the championship?
I did. I did San Jose State championship, and then I went to Ohio State and beat San Jose State. It wasn't even very fun at that point. But
did you stake your flag in the middle of the field, or no?
Well, I know you've been sitting there for about a minute and a half as these guys have rambled on. Quick answer, yes or no, would you be interested?
That's a lot of time, and I'm not very good, so nah.
You have to play one game a week, Lyle.
All right, I called dibs on playing Lyle week 1. All right, Brady, what do we got?
We're setting this up. If you had to build a Mount Rushmore of the best college football programs of all time, who would your teams be?
Wow.
All right, really quick. Notre Dame, USC, Alabama, and Michigan.
I'm going to go Notre Dame, USC, Michigan, and sorry, Ohio State, I'm going to go Bama.
I'm going to go with the first 3 that you guys had, Notre Dame, USC, Michigan. I'm going to throw Florida in there.
Well, I'm going to go with Chattanooga. No, whoever asked that is a very good question. Got to go with USC. I think Notre Dame as well. You got to throw them up there. These last few are a toss-up. I think you can toss up either Ohio State, Michigan. I feel like that one, it's honestly, you can't go wrong. So I'm just going to leave that there for whoever wants to pick.
Real quick, Max Christensen asked us this question.
Max Christensen, good job, buddy. And I think Alabama, but mainly because of what they've done in the last decade. If you asked me this 10 years ago, no way, but I got to go with Bama.
Yeah, and the tough part is I personally believe that there are 5 white-collar college football programs, and it's USC, Notre Dame, Michigan, Ohio State, and Bama. I think those are your top 5, and then there are a few that you can say as honorable mentions to that, and then there are tiers of college football, and at that top tier, I think it's those 5.
Well, maybe after the show, we can all head down to South Dakota and spend some hours adding an additional 5th face to Mount Rushmore, so then we can add all 5.
Okay, Blake.
And get rid of the other presidents on Mount Rushmore?
No, we're just adding one to put 5 because Josh said there's 5 white, whatever he's just said.
I'm not trying to go to federal prison, Blake.
You know what?
This is a college
Blake,
football
it's not
podcast.
Coming to you live
You're
from the
making
top of Mount Rushmore in beautiful South Dakota.
You know what, Blake? You're making my head hurt. Next question.
This isn't Phineas and Ferb, Blake. You can't just go building stuff whenever you
You're
want.
right. You're right. Next question.
What areas of the United States lack a strong college football presence?
I think we need to get a powerhouse in Alaska. I think we need to go over there and get some teams there. I think that'd be fantastic.
I'm gonna say the Northeast. For as many great pro teams that are out there, not a whole lot of powerhouses out in the Northeast in terms of college football. That New York, especially that upper Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont area, not a lot.
Yeah, I'm sure in Vermont they're dying for a
Well,
team.
or really even in Boston either. Boston College is
I
not
feel
good.
You don't have one. I agree if we're talking United States, but I'm sure there's a reason behind this, probably academic-wise. But college football is I know it's not a professional sport, but college football is the only major sport in North America that does not have any teams in Canada playing at a Division I level. And I believe it's because of university standards or requirements or whatever that may be. But I think a team in Canada would be interesting. But I think I agree with Lyle mostly. In the
What are you
Northeast.
doing in Canada?
What are you doing in Canada?
All right, Brady, what do we got?
I hate you guys so much. This is awesome.
Come on.
Come on. Who are your... Let's just go top. Let's just go number 1. It says top 3, but just shorten it. Just 1. The best college football quarterback of the 21st century.
Oh, I knew this question was coming, and I had a top 3 ready. So now going down to 1.
So, Josh, you can go top 3 real quick.
I'm going to go 1, and again, all bias aside, I'm going to go Matt Leinart.
Really?
I want to get this out of the way so I get it out first. I'm going Tim Tebow.
I'm gonna go Tebow as
that
well.
was mine too, and I hate to say it. Please quit your baseball career, but in terms of college
He had a
football,
higher
Tim
batting
Tebow.
average in the minors than Jock Peterson. That's all I got to say.
Mine was a toss-up between Tebow and Leinart. And that third spot was tough for me, too. I probably would have said Vince Young. I think if we're looking at the last, because I think if you would put him in a current offense, you'd see some points.
Honorable mention, Johnny Manziel.
Honestly, though, he was really good and really fun to watch.
He was good for a few. He won the Heisman due to 3 games.
So did Lamar Jackson. So.
Also, 2 honorable mentions: Bennington from Chattanooga and Dylan Sterling-Cole. Next question.
Benefield.
Oh, Benefield. Whatever.
All right, fourth and goal, 5-yard line. You're down by 6. Who's your quarterback? And no, Lyle, this wasn't a do you throw a screen on the goal line. Who's your quarterback? J.T. Barrett, Baker Mayfield, or Jalen Hurts?
I'm gonna say Jalen Hurts specifically because I think he's the best pocket passer of the 3.
I think he is the best playmaker of the 3. So I'm gonna go out of those 3. I'm going Jalen Hurts.
I'm going Jalen Hurts, but what I thought the question was going to be of all time. So if I got 4th and 5 on the 6th all time, I'm going Vince Young.
Not Russell Wilson.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah. Of these 3, I'm gonna go my strategic football mind on this one. I'm gonna go J.T. Barrett because he has the ability to run the ball as well.
His QBR this past weekend was 21.1.
Lyle,
is that good?
Lyle, I say this because strategic. He has the ability to run the ball because you of all people should know you run the ball on the goal line.
Yeah, I'm from Seattle.
That's 2 Seahawk jokes in 1 question. Thoughts on the 30 and 93 play from this past weekend?
It was like set up before the game, right?
Somebody cue the Bad News Bears music for that play.
How does this happen?
They literally just kicked the ball around like it was like a 6-year-old soccer game at one point.
Like when I was watching the play, I'm thinking to myself, okay, like I think it was Mississippi State. They keep doing this because it's smart because they'll just back them up even farther. But then I realized, wait a second, they could literally just pick this up and run it for a touchdown. So there's no way they're doing this on purpose. This is just madness. So I've never seen anything like it. I have no words. There we go. Perfect. There are no words on how to explain what happened. Now, I wish I could have seen what have happened on 3rd and 93, but that has to be the longest play from scrimmage I've ever seen. Like, just thinking about this play makes me sad. Brady, next question, please.
Wait, really quickly. People forget that didn't ASU have a 3rd and 47 last night, and they scored a touchdown on it?
Joshua was 3rd and 37. Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Okay,
but we did
excuse
convert
me.
it. I know. Brady, what do we got next? Great song as well.
Next question. Lyle, you got me going on that one. Thoughts on Lamar Jackson's 500-yard performance, and does he deserve to be back in the Heisman contention?
Really good, and yes.
After this week, if I'm looking at a top 5 in the Heisman, I'm putting him at number. Of course, again, it's week 2, but based on my top 5 Heisman contenders' performances last week, he's jumped up to number 1.
Yesterday's game was the game, and I said this to Lyle, the game where I realized I think this guy has what it takes to be a good NFL quarterback, so I think yes.
I think you have to be able to put him up there because he torched that Tar Heel team. He had 300 in the air, he had almost 200 on the ground. He was the overall best performer, I think individual performer of the entire weekend. All right, now this next question has a sound bite to come with it. We'll play the sound bite first. Here we go.
Today that Kaiser has been sacked. Zane Gonzalez from 24 yards out. And it's good.
What are you guys' thoughts on Zane Gonzalez's first NFL game and his first career field goal?
I believe that commentator was either A, he should have been more excited, or B, he was like, well, sure, it's good, obviously.
By the way, Adam Vinatieri missed a field goal and an extra point today, so the reign of Zane is taking over.
Zane made a field goal in his first NFL game. In other news, the sun is hot.
In other news, Deshaun Kaiser also threw his first NFL touchdown pass today. But going back to Zane,
and guess who kicked the extra point?
It was Zane.
It was Zane.
Well, they should have cued Imagine Dragons on that broadcast because welcome to the new age, Cleveland Browns fans. You have the greatest kicker of all time.
Goodness. Brady. Oh.
It's so late.
I'm not going to play the song.
Let's
don't
get
worry.
these questions going. We got
this
about
is a
5
quick
more
one.
minutes.
I'm applying to college and plan on applying to ASU to study sports journalism. Is it worth it?
All I got to say
gosh.
is, bro, send me a message on Twitter, wherever. Let me know what weekend you're coming, and after you leave, you'll know the answer.
Yeah, I think.
Say no more.
This is the school for you.
Yeah, it's the best decision.
You got an amazing program, amazing athletics, a beautiful campus. The girls are beautiful, and what's better? You got the 4 men of the Harris Highlight Show here. That's all you need. Let's see what else we got.
What do you guys think about PJ Fleck at Minnesota, and should he have taken Row the Boat with him from Western Michigan?
Did he create that, or what was the deal?
He did. I thought he did take it with him.
He did take it with him, but do you think he should have? Or should you keep it at Western Michigan where it sort of exploded?
I think he should have kept it at Western Michigan.
I'm thinking. See, that's the thing. If he created it, I think he has every right to take it with him. Just like a lot of coaches do that. When Carroll left USC, he took that "Win Forever" slogan to Seattle, and I don't think there's anything wrong with it.
I mean, hey, the guy's 2-0. I mean, what more can you say?
After 2 weeks, who is your pick for the best quarterback in college football? Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, or someone else?
Mine's still Sam Darnold. I mean, that interception he threw in week 1 was, it wasn't good, but ever since then he's played at the highest level. He's still my front runner for the Heisman.
Best, I still think Sam Darnold, but if you ask me like who's most impressive, I still got to go with Baker Mayfield.
Again, I'm gonna go Sam Darnold, but I'm still liking what I'm seeing from Mason Rudolph, and I think it's gonna be between him and Darnold. No disrespect to Baker Mayfield, but I think it's between Rudolph and Darnold at the end of the season. That's my prediction.
Well, I think whoever wins the Oklahoma State game is going to be the representative in the college football playoff,
exactly,
and 2, get whoever wins the game to New York for the Heisman finalist.
I totally agree. It's just my very early prediction is going to be Oklahoma State.
Well, Blake, you said whoever wins the Oklahoma State game?
Correct.
That game is not the last game of the year for these teams, which is really surprising. They're playing in the middle of the season.
Yeah.
Wow.
I still think the winner of that game goes. That's because that's how that conference is going to work out.
Yep. All right, Brady, we got time for a few more questions.
Well, we have 2 questions
left,
so
this is perfect.
These. We got 2 left, so here we go. Ready? Is Will Grier one of the most underrated quarterbacks in college football?
I've been saying this for weeks. Yes.
Yeah, I think he's solid.
Yeah, I agree.
I could agree as well. I mean, he's a big dude, and he can ball out. Blake, did you give an answer?
Oh, yeah, I said I agree.
Again, 6-0 at Florida before he got suspended.
True. Last question. How will Purdue do in the Big Ten this year after going 1-1 to start the season?
There was a comment on the video, and I think it was, or maybe it was last week's podcast that said, "Do you guys think Purdue could have won if they got a little bit more help?" That was this week. A little bit more help from the officials, and I think yes. I think there were a few calls that unfortunately didn't go their way. Of course, you can't blame the game on the officials because let's face it, they got beat. But if they got a little bit of help or they were cut a little bit more slack, they could have won. I think they're going to be a decent team. I think IU is the better team in Indiana. You're very
The
welcome,
best team
Brady.
in Indiana, that's for sure.
Congratulations. It's very hard.
Right.
But I think Purdue's going to be a better football team this year. But again, I think the Big 12 conference is going to be, or the Big 10 is going to be good this year because all of those mid-level teams, Minnesota, Indiana, Purdue, Maryland, I think they all look good.
Unlike Josh being able to say that UCLA looks decent, I can say that Purdue looked decent. I mean, Purdue looked very good in that first game against Louisville. You just now got that?
No, I got it. It's just...
Yeah. Purdue looked very good in the first game against Louisville at Lucas Oil Stadium, lost on the last drive of the game, and then they smacked Ohio this past week. They doubled their score. I think it was 42-21, I believe. But the new head coach of Jeff Brom, he's an aggressive guy. He's an aggressive coach, and he's very energetic. I mean, he was an XFL quarterback, for God's sake. So that's when you know your coach is going to be an exciting guy to play for. So Jeff Brom, I think he's doing a very good job there, coming over from Western Kentucky, where I believe he was 30-10 in his tenure at Western Kentucky. But I think Purdue is going to have a very good year, Josh. Like you said, those mid-level teams in the Big Ten are going to prove a lot of people wrong this year.
For Blake's sake, I'm keeping it short, 7-5.
I'll be honest, Purdue, I think they could have won against Louisville. Other than that, who knows? They can win 5 games, they can win 8. Hey, but it's Purdue. They had amazing uniforms last week. Their helmets were unbelievable.
Yeah.
So, for the benefit of the doubt, I'll give them that. But guys,
Here comes 50 comments about no more UniWatch on our show.
Yeah.
We had a couple on there.
we are going to try to get back to UniWatch. There's so many different segments on the show, and we do want to try to keep this within a reasonable time. So maybe we can somehow get UniWatch back.
One last question.
Oh, final question.
Yeah, someone just actually sent this in 2 minutes ago. So
Oh, nice.
Pretty fresh. And it's not a college, but which state needs an NFL team? Because I know we talked about which college football area.
Bro, I'm telling you, dude, the people there in Alaska, they spend the year freezing their butts off. Give them something, worthwhile. Give them an NFL team. I think that'd be fantastic.
Or which country? Throwing out there as well.
We got to stick to the USA.
If there's a country, it's Canada. But
even though the
in
CFL
Toronto.
is low-key kind of lit.
yeah, it is, and it's apparently very
huge.
popular
So-
too.
The Toronto Argonauts, dude.
Argonauts, yep.
Yeah,
Montreal
so
Alouettes.
Saskatchewan Roughriders.
That's the best name.
There you go. But
Other
guys,
team names.
time to go on to the Pick'ems. Now, before we get started, it's not too late to join the Harris Highlights Pick'em League. If you guys have good picks the rest of the year, you guys can still come out on top. Every week, you pick the winner of 10 matchups and compete with hundreds of viewers, but more importantly, the 4 of us. Whoever has the most points at the end of the year will receive a $25 gift card of their choice. If you're interested in signing up or you just want to see how you're doing, the link is in the description below. Now, guys, I actually have the current standings up on my phone right now, and we have a sole winner as of the moment.
Leader. It
Sorry,
hasn't won yet.
Not getting ahead of ourselves, and that is Rams All Day. He has correctly predicted 19 of the first 20 games.
Wow.
So how about that? Then you got 3 people tied with 18, and then you go down the list, and there's 17. Now I'm scrolling, guys. I don't really see any of us on here, so we need to step it up. But we also have our own Pick'em League as well. So let's get to the scorings as well.
Real quick, Blake, in that Pick'em League, I think I have 0 correct because I don't know if I've
So that's the thing. It's
I've
tough.
missed 2 picks.
You have? Well,
Yeah.
I didn't see you on there, bud. Now, the tough thing is you got to remember every week to do your pick'ems. Now, I know a lot of people probably forget, but you got to remember, stay on that, make... Oh, actually, wait. Oh, my goodness. Look at this. Josh has 17. He's tied for 5th place. I just saw the name JT Shea, and I didn't, think much of it.
It's
But
3 picks then, right?
so, yeah, you're
Okay.
you're 2 picks behind the winner. It's currently tied for 5th, so way to go, Josh. But, guys, going to our own pick'em rankings, in last place is Brady Klein with 14.
Woo!
Then second to last, I hate to say this, but me with 15. I don't know what's going on there. Now the question is, who is in first place?
It's Lyle.
With 16 points, ye old Goldstein. And in first place with 17 is Mr. Josh Schaefer.
Wow, you guys must have had a really bad week, because I thought I had a really, really bad week.
I like how you called him ye old Goldstein.
Yeah, Josh had some good picks in there. All right, guys.
Really?
Pick'ems. Not a lot this week because there's not that many good games, so let's try to keep this as quick as we can. First one, Tennessee and Florida.
I picked Rocky Top against Georgia Tech, and I'm going to go ahead and pick Rocky Top for the win in Gainesville. This is a tough pick for me. We're going SEC. I'm going to go a road win for Rocky Top.
Florida did not look good in week 1. They still have a quarterback dilemma to figure out, but I think they get back on the map this week and take down Tennessee.
I think I know why I'm last is because I always play devil's advocate, and I'm going to do it again right now. So I'm going to go with a swap, and I'm going to go with Florida, another very tough home field advantage place to play.
I think some of Florida's players are not going to be suspended anymore. They had some players suspended week 1.
They had 11 players
They have
suspended.
Callaway back now,
so
so
they
number
got
one
him back.
receiver.
I'm going to go with the swamp. I think Florida gets this one done. Texas and USC, a rematch, 11 years in the making. I think it's a little too late. I feel like, sure, people care, but not as much as they would have had it been years and years ago. But still, nonetheless, a rematch that people have been dying to see. Who gets it?
I think SC fans care. I don't think Texas fans do as much. With SC's Rose Bowl win last year and with a win on Saturday, I think SC fans are going to start a little bit of redemption, or at least it's a start. For me personally, I think it is an absolute rout. I think USC absolutely torches these guys at the Coliseum. I think the Coliseum's going to be rocking. I'm not a huge fan of Texas this year, and USC looked really good against a very good Stanford team. I'm going to go Trojans all the way in this one.
Shane Buechele, the Texas starting quarterback, was hurt this week for his game. They're not sure if he'll come back on Saturday. If he does, I say USC wins by 25. If he doesn't play, I say USC wins by 40. So
40?
Trojans.
Yeah,
This
that's
Texas
what I'm
team
saying
does not
too.
look good.
I think SC wins by 35.
I'm going to make it short and sweet because I don't want to make an outlandish score prediction, even though it's probably going to be true. I'm going to go SC in this game.
I'm going to go USC, but Josh, I want to ask this question really quickly. With Texas obviously not looking as good, and the fact that it is so late, 11 years later, I know USC fans really wanted a rematch. Does it kind of hurt a little knowing that it's not going to be like a 3-8 matchup, that Texas isn't ranked, and like I said, that it is so years and years after that memorable game?
Yeah, and because that loss in 2005, it was at the Rose Bowl. It wasn't in the Rose Bowl. It was the national championship. And that would have been 3 straight for SC. So I know one of my best friend's dad, I was texting him today, and he says, I will never get over that game because it would have been 3 straight. I think some SC fans are disappointed. For me, I've been disappointed. I cried after that game. Because that was, at the time, the only team I watched. So I cried after. Now, if they lose, I'm not going to cry. I'm going to be upset. But again, it's a regular season game. I think it's disappointing that it's not a 1-2 matchup or even a 3-8 matchup. But Texas has the potential to make this an interesting game. I just don't think they do so. But if they do, I think the outcome's going to be fun. I just don't think they keep it close.
The crazy thing is about this game, before we move on, is that all the players playing in this game were 6, 7 years old when that game was played. So that's kind of weird to think, just pretty much us, because we're about that age. So that's kind of weird to think about. So hopefully SC can get the revenge. Ole Miss and Cal.
I don't know where to start with this one. I think Cal has looked good. I thought they looked good against North Carolina this week. They got a win, but it wasn't as convincing as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, against Weber State?
Weber State, they won 33-20, but they still let it's Weber State, isn't it?
Oh, is it?
It's Weber.
It's
Yeah.
Weber.
You
Okay.
need a second B for it to be Weber, Blake.
Hey.
Well, no, I think that's how you
Thanks,
spell Weber.
Lyle.
I think that's how you spell Weber if it's a last name or a name, but I guess, yeah, Weber State. But, they won by 13 points, but I'm surprised they let them score 20, and why Cal didn't score more if it's a home game. Mississippi, I think the Rebels come in and they get it done, but I think it's going to be very close.
Well, I think Ole Miss is going to win, but I don't think it's going to be close at all. Cal pulled away at the end in that game. They near lost to Weber State. I'm taking Ole Miss.
We're going to go 3 in a row here. I'm going to go Ole Miss. Josh, like you said, Weber with 1B, 2B, like Lyle said, is the last name. The Weber Grills, though, the grill companies with 1B, so whatever you're going to do.
Y'all are sleeping. Last week, Ole Miss was trailing UT Martin. They were trailing UT Martin, and they barely beat them.
I'm going to go with Ole Miss in this one. They're going to get a big road win here to start off this season.
Guys, you know what? I think Cal gets this one done. Ole Miss has not looked good this year.
Blake,
Nah.
you say they were trailing UT Martin, but they still beat Tennessee Martin 45-23. So
Blake,
they got it done. Same thing with South Alabama.
LSU was also trailing Chattanooga.
That's a different... What are you comparing Chattanooga to UT Martin?
Yeah, Brady, you go.
I'm taking Cal on this one. Now, arguably the best game of the week, and that is Clemson at Louisville.
again, this is another great matchup, and I think Lamar Jackson, if he can do what he did this week, of course, this is a different Clemson team. This game being at Louisville, they're going to be rocking, I believe, at Papa John's, Cardinal Stadium, or whatever it's called. They're going to be rocking.
Every stadium over there is Papa John's.
Yes. It's going to be a great game. I think Clemson takes it. I think this is a low-scoring game. I think it's going to be another low-scoring contest for Clemson. I think the Tigers get it done. They were impressive this week. Another low-scoring game. I thought Lamar Jackson was unbelievable this week, but Clemson, very close.
I'm going to take Clemson as well. The way Kelly Bryant's played over the first 2 weeks has really been impressive. So I'm going to say go Tigers on this game.
You know, Papa John's, Josh, like you said, Papa John's Cardinal Stadium is one of my favorite pizza places, but I'm also a bigger fan of guys who pay attention and listen to the show, which was Andrew called into this show earlier. So I'm going to ride with him, and I'm going to go with Clemson in this game.
I like the reasoning.
Now,
Thank
this
you.
one, this is a very tough one for me. After Clemson's first 2 games, I can easily see them being one of the 4 best teams and making it into the college football playoff at the end of the year.
What a flip from last year.
This defensive front is absolutely scary. It is dominant. But this game's at Louisville. Lamar Jackson won the Heisman. He's looked really good this year. Last year, it was his coming out party. He had games against Clemson. He had games against Florida State. Now, mind you, Florida State he completely annihilated. But this year, he knows what it takes to get the wins against the big teams. He is at home, as I mentioned. And like I said, I'm all for Clemson. Andrew, you know I love you. I love Clemson. But guys, I think Lamar Jackson has what it takes. And this year he's going to get his revenge. Last year, at Clemson, almost had him. He almost had him. But this year, it's very tough to beat a team 2 years in a row. I think Louisville might get this done. Now, like I said, if Clemson just comes out and dominates, I agree. But what Josh said, I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I think it's maybe whoever scores like 17 or 20 first is going to win. But, guys, I know this was a long one, but I'm going with Louisville in the upset. Stanford at San Diego State.
So, again, This weekend for ASU was embarrassing. They lost by 10, but in the fourth quarter, even though they were physically in the game, the scoreboard showed that they were in the ball game. ASU gifted the Aztecs a field goal at the end of the half. They dropped a wide-open touchdown pass in the end zone. ASU was in this game physically, but it felt mentally like they were down by 30 points. San Diego State is a good football team. Best special teams in the country. I say with a wink. Shout out Brandon Heichler, number 59, the best punter in the country on San Diego State. This game's in San Diego. It's at Qualcomm Stadium. It's not going to be sold out. I think they're going to get a good crowd. Stanford wins by a late fourth quarter field goal.
Well, I'm going to say not so fast on that one. Shout out Lee Corso. But that was San Diego State's first Pac-12 win ever, and it came against a team like ASU. I don't think their second one's coming against a team like Stanford. I think Stanford wins by at least 2 touchdowns.
Lyle, I really like your reasoning there, and you make a really good point. Coming into this past week, San Diego State was 0-26 all-time against Pac-12 teams. Their first one coming against none other than the Arizona State Sun Devils. But I am going to stick and back the Pac, so I'm sticking with Stanford in this game.
Man, it would be unbelievable to see if San Diego State gets back-to-back Pac-12 wins.
It'd be impressive.
But Stanford is still Stanford. Some people were picking them in their top 4 at the end of the year. I think they'll get this win, but I think San Diego State, they could put up a good fight. Not only, we're going to get to the worst of the worst, but I want to make this an honorable mention because we have 2 teams that weren't even a part of Division I FBS football last year, and that is UAB and Coastal Carolina. Now, guys, really quickly, have you seen Coastal Carolina's field?
I have not.
Yeah, it's teal, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very interesting. You should Google it. But guys, who do you think wins that game?
Well, I think this is a matchup of probably the 2 coolest logos and or mascots in college sports, even. The Blazers and the Chanticleers.
The Chanticleers.
The Chanticleers.
Chanticleers.
Same
It's a type of
thing.
bird.
It is a chicken. These guys beat the Arizona Wildcats in the College World Series a few years ago. And
in baseball.
And I was happy. And I like being happy. So for that reason, I hope the Chanticleers make me happy this weekend. And I'm going to go with Coastal Carolina at home over the UAB Blazers.
Yeah, I'm about to pull out some of my vintage worst of the worst logic for this pick. I'm a Mariners fan. I'm from Seattle. They have a utility player named Taylor Motter who went to Coastal Carolina. I'm sure nobody who's listening to this has probably heard of him, but for that reason, I'm going to take Coastal Carolina.
I'm looking at their field right now. It looks like a poor man's Boise State, but it's really cool. I mean, on a map, it would be classified as water. It's the type of color it is. But I'm going to go with Coastal Carolina because UAB didn't have a football team 2 years ago.
Yeah, but they have some of the best helmets in the game right now, and I'm going to go with UAB. All right, they're 1-1. Now, guys, now we go to the worst of the worst, and that is UNC A&T at Charlotte.
Now, this is an interesting pick, but I'm going to take some Lyle logic here for a worst of the worst pick'em. Blake did that video where he was picking all the college nicknames, and it took him however long to get not all of them. It took me about 4 minutes to get all of them, and Blake is too much of a pansy to record it and post it because he was embarrassed at how good I was. But the last team that I got on that quiz was Charlotte, so I'm going to go with Charlotte in this one. I think they get it done at home.
This is tough. This is let's see. Michael Jordan played his basketball at UNC, not UNC A&T, and then now owns part of what was the Charlotte Bobcats.
Hornets now.
Well, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say UNC A&T. I don't know why. I'm just picking them.
It's a bold strategy there, Cotton. Lyle, what does A&T stand for there?
Is it architecture and something else?
No. Agriculture and technology.
Yeah, there you go.
What does A&M stand for Texas?
Agriculture and mechanics.
Mining.
I
thought it was agriculture and mining. I don't know.
Well,
Whatever
figure
it
it
was.
out.
All right, but because none of us know either of these teams, I'm going to go with Charlotte because I own a Sean May Charlotte Bobcats jersey. Similar reasoning why Lyle's going with them.
Charlotte wasn't in the bowl game last year. UNC A&T was. I'm going with A&T. All right, guys, last game, Arizona State at Texas Tech.
Oh man, this could be the worst of the worst. I know Texas Tech got votes this week. I think they're going to be upset for how Kalen Ballage ran all over them last year. But this was a great game last year. I think Blake said it on the show a few times. He said it in person countless times. We might never see a college football performance like we did last year.
I used to always say that.
I don't think we will.
And I don't think we ever will. And I hope we do. But that showing last year from Kalen Ballage and was incredible, and the showing from Arizona State, the consistency that they had throughout the game. Offensively, they had consistent defense. It was consistently awful. But I'm going to go ahead and take Texas Tech in this one. There's no more Patrick Mahomes to carry that team, but they do have some playmakers coming back, and the game's in Lubbock. I hope Arizona State goes out there and performs a lot better than they did this week. Just unfortunately, I don't see them getting it done. So I still think ASU is going to have a decent season. I think the Devils go to a bowl game. I'm not ready to write them off yet, but I think Texas Tech gets it done in a close one. It's going to be a shootout.
Well, from the first two games of Arizona State football that I've watched, as we know, they barely beat New Mexico State. They lost to San Diego State. Those are two teams that aren't even in conference play. Obviously, Texas Tech isn't either. But with that air raid offense, the way the defense has been struggling, it's not selling me. And I'm sorry, until Brady White comes back, I'm honestly not sold that ASU will win another game until that point. So I'm taking Texas Tech.
Well, and looking at this Texas Tech team, like you said, Josh, last year, Patrick Mahomes to lead the way, now with the Chiefs. But their quarterback this year, Nick Shimonek, has 4 incompletions on the entire year. He's 26 for 30, though. 385 passing yards. This is very not like Texas Tech offense. He only has 3 passing touchdowns. But his QBR is 227 on like the, 22 point whatever.
What, for Barrett?
Yeah.
21.1.
Yeah, where Shimonek's here is 222.7 in the first 3 games. So he's balling out, and the ASU secondary has been torn to shreds, even though they looked not impressive, but better in the first game. I'm sticking with the pick that you guys had, and I'm going with Texas Tech.
I hate to do this, but I'm just going to make it short and sweet. I think Texas Tech gets this win. I'm not convinced ASU wins another game, at least until maybe Oregon State, maybe like a Colorado, even maybe a UCLA. I don't know, but I'm going to quote the great Lyle Goldstein on Season 1 of the Harris Highlight Show, and that is, prove me wrong.
I got to bring that back.
You honestly do. So, I mean, Texas Tech, like I said, anytime you're playing Texas Tech, they're going to put up points. But who knows? I mean, there's no defense, so maybe we can outscore them. But, guys, we got a clean sweep of Texas Tech here. That's not a good thing, especially our third game of the year.
I think the one time that we have swept across the board picking against ASU was when they played UW last year. Because even when they played SC, I think I was the only one to pick SC.
Yeah. So, who knows? Like I said, prove us wrong, guys. Prove us wrong. Guys, merchandise. If you're interested in owning some Harris Highlights merch, well, today is your lucky day. That's right, it is your lucky day. Pick your own. Don't sleep on Chattanooga, Zane for Heisman, and official Harris Highlights merchandise today. As we mentioned, Brady just added some new merchandise to the store. Make sure you go and check that out.
Also, if any of you guys have any things from the show that you want added to merch, shoot us a message. We'll be sure to get some of that put up for you, too.
So let us know as well. Now, I don't think we know where game day is next week. Do we yet?
I can check.
In case it is, if game day is in a place that's near you, make sure you show up there with a Don't Sleep on Chattanooga sign, a Zane for Heisman sign, or just any sign you want, and make sure you send us pictures.
Louisville Clemson.
Oh, of course it's Louisville Clemson. So any fans out there in the Louisville area, make sure you go to that and send us some photos. Once again, guys, if you head on over to SeatGeek.com, you get $20 off your first purchase by entering the promo code Harris Highlights. That is one word. Definitely a deal that you do not want to pass up. And once again, we are giving away that Pro Football Focus subscription. I remember our good friend BV was like, can I answer this contest? Because I really want to get this subscription as well, because that'd be fantastic for me. So make sure you get on over there and you enter to win. Thank you for tuning in. As always, the show is on SoundCloud. People are asking us if we can get it onto iTunes. So maybe Brady can work his magic and get us onto iTunes. We are live on BlazeRadioOnline.com every week, so you can listen to us live and submit us your questions. Like I said, if you have a question you'd like to have answered, send me a message on Twitter. Or, if you're tired of talking to me, send Josh a message on Twitter. Send Lyle a message on Twitter. Send Brady a message on Twitter.
And a quick shout out to everybody in the Southeast tomorrow dealing with Hurricane Irma. Our thoughts and prayers go out to you guys.
Yes, absolutely.
So major prayers to them. I'll put all of our links in the bio below. This has been Josh Schaefer, Lyle Goldstein, and Brady Klein from the Bill Austin studio in beautiful downtown Phoenix. I'm Blake Harris, also known as Harris Highlights. Thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and we will see you next week.